Well, I'm definitely going to ask you some more questions about the movie
Okay.
because that's the dream, right? As you get your book published, it's a big deal. You get the movie deal. Everything, all the stars have aligned. Everything is coming up, Mira, right?
And then things change.
No, that jinxes it. I'm saying everything is always going to be good for you forever.
Okay, good. I hope so. As Sherman Alexie said once, he was in line at Subway with he was doing something at some graduate program at a university, and he was in line with his sort of student handler, and she said, "What's it like being, a famous writer?" And blah blah blah. He said, "Well, one day you're walking down the red carpet at the Oscars, and the next you're in line at Subway," and that's kind of what it's. That's that's sort of how it is, but not that I'm famous like Sherman Alexie. But anyway,
Well,
whatever you want to know, the movie is in flux right now. That's why I'm a little circumspect because uh, Disney bought Fox Studios. I don't know if you were aware of this big merger. And my team at Fox 2000, which I just love this group of, it's an all women, it's the only all women major studio team in Hollywood. They were told by Disney that they could come and they would have their own division and so on at Disney once they signed the deal. And so Fox Studios signed the deal, and boom, all thousands of people lost their jobs. And my team, they said, sorry, we're not going to bring you on board. Oh, and by the way, we own all your movies now and all the movies in development. So my whole team is now at Sony, the studio. Disney owns my script. My director is still on board. The production company, Working Title Films in the UK, is still on board, but we're just not sure what's happening because I just don't know. What was the deal was that and we have a script. We have a great screenwriter. The deal was that the Wonderling was going to be the next film that Stephen Daldry did after he directed after Wicked came out, the movie version of the play, because that's his next big movie. But right now we're kind of all in limbo. I don't know if Sony is going to try to buy my movie back from Disney, if Disney's never going to make it, but they probably will. They probably still are interested because Daldry's such a big deal right now as a director, um, or if they'll make it just for streaming, or if they will just sit on it for a long. I mean, somebody has to make it legally by I think 2022 or 23 because then the rights go back to me. So we're all kind of sitting here waiting. I actually just sent an email out to all the movie people just saying, do you guys know what's going on? So that's where we're at. I've had up until now, up until the merger, I've had just an incredible experience. I mean, this team of women I was working with, I just love them. I've been involved the whole time with both the production company and the studio, and sent them concept drawings, gave them notes on script. Uh, it's just been a really great experience. I have not had the awful Hollywood experience that other people have had. Now I'm kind of having it. It's just I'm in the, place of not knowing. But I don't know if you know the story behind and if you want to know the crazy story behind it.
sure.
Um, so I had written only a quarter of the book. I had no publisher. But my agent thought it was good enough to send out to publishers based on a quarter of the script. I mean, quarter of the book written, which is rather.
Illustrations also, or just the quarter of the
I
book?
had done some illustrations, and and it was a rather risky thing, but she thought she thought it could fly, and so public interested, and the book was going to go to auction, which meant several publishers were going to bid on it. Now, an auction for a children's book could be, you know, you could maybe still not make that much money, because they don't, unless you're J.K. Rowling or somebody, or Neil Gaiman or someone, even with an auction, you might not get a lot of money, and it's spread out over, 3-4 years. So I was, like, we got some early bids in, and then my agent was at a meeting in LA with a couple movie agents, for another project, another client whose book was being made into a movie. The meeting was over, and she had my agent asked, was with her assistant, and she asked the two movie agents if she could sit there for a minute and talk to her assistant. They were just sort of strategizing about my book auction, and she had her computer open, her laptop open, and the drawing of my character, that's in the sort of in the middle, and when you turn, it's in the frontis part of the front of the book, inside cover, and my illustration was there, and the movie agent walked past and asked, what's that? And so this was on like a Wednesday, my agent said, oh, this is this character for this book, blah, 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 blah. Told her a little bit about it. And she and her associate said, could we read this manuscript? And my agent said, well, it's just a quarter done, but I'll ask the author. She asked me, and I said, sure, but nothing's going to happen. The next day I get a call from my agent saying, CAA, Creative Artists Agency, they think there's a movie in this, and they want to talk to you. And I said, well, I'm sure they're really busy. They can call me anytime. She said, no, they really want to talk to you. And I said, well, okay, anytime. She said, no, they want to talk to you now. They're on the phone now. So I had a conference call. So that was on I think a Thursday. They sent me a list of people of directors, producers. They said, we're any additions you want to make here? It's like, okay. Actually, I did. I added my favorite animation company called Leica. They did Box Trolls. I don't know if you saw that.
Sure.
By Box Trolls, Coraline. Just love them. They do stop action and computer generated movies. And they sent out my script to a bunch of people on a Friday. On Monday, there was a bidding war in Hollywood over it, between Universal, Fox, Scott Rudin, the producer, Ron Howard. Like, it was insane. And I'm just sitting there like, this is insane. This is crazy. The book's not done. I to this day, I don't understand. I think sometimes a buzz is generated, and then everyone wants in on the buzz, and it's just bizarre. And so by the next night, we had a director, production company, studio, and we had a deal, and boom. And then the next week was my auction, and my agent called the publishers and said, by the way, there's a big movie deal. There's a big they didn't just option it. They bought the rights. So think about that when you make your offer. So that's kind of how the book and movie deal came down. And the whole time I always had my publisher in mind, because I just love this publisher, and everybody told me, they don't have a lot of money. They're never going to be able to give you as much as the other ones. My agent was, you do whatever you want. You just take your time. And so I went to the Eric Carle Picture Book Museum, which I love, which is about half an hour from my house. And I went in the bookstore, and I asked them if I could do a crazy thing. And I pulled out 30 books without looking at who the publishers were, of the most beautiful books in the place. And I laid them out all on the table, and 27 were from Candlewick Press, which is my publisher. So I went with them, and they ended up offering more than all the other publishers. And I love them. And the book, you asked me about the design. The book is exactly how I imagined it would look, but even better. It's just the beautiful design. I mean, they
And
just
is this your artwork throughout on the cover, inside, everywhere?
yeah. Except the swirly things and the lettering and the design the on the cover. That's Jacopo Bruno, who is an amazing Italian illustrator and book designer. So he did the cover, and an art director at Candlewick did the interior. But it looks. I mean, I did sort of a mock-up on how I imagined it to look, and it looks just like it, except better. I mean, it's I can't. I'm gobsmacked about like how close it is to my dream of the book. I think that rarely happens, so I'm really happy.
So that's got to give you some faith going on. One, I assume you're talking to me right now on a gold-plated device, jewel-encrusted, and your Tesla's parked outside.
Now, here's the thing. Everybody thinks I've got like millions of dollars, which is so crazy because when you sell them, it took a year to get paid for a little part of the movie deal. The big part of the money comes at when they start shooting. So whatever I got, it's like I got less than half after taxes. I paid off giant debts. I did buy a car because mine died. I bought my husband a car because his died, and then I helped a whole bunch of people, and I got to help my stepdaughters and help my grandson go to preschool, but now I'm in deep doo-doo financially because I've lost 2 years of income, so fortunately I was able to live on some of those savings. So that's the subway and red carpet flip-flop. It's a risky business, but someone's got to do it.
Well, wouldn't we're talking about this Disney Fox thing. I am assuming that having been through that experience where everything came together in such an unusual way, as though the universe just decided this is happening for Mira, we're doing this. That has got to give you some faith that powers like that can't be denied just because Disney. By the time they're done merging, the sequel will probably have some stormtroopers in it, some Marvel heroes. It'll be a giant crossover.
Well, I've been really. If Disney does it, Disney has done some really good films. I'm very attached to my team, but I'm sure Disney would do a great job. The one thing that even if it never gets done, which hopefully it will, everybody still believes it will. I have great access, and that's been a blessing. I mean, if I had to have a movie script in the future, or if I have something, another project, I have really great access to people who can look at those projects and say, yeah, I can get this to some director. I can get this to somebody. So that's amazing. That's something that's worth a lot. And I'm really grateful for that. So we'll just see about the movie. It could work out fantastically. It could be that by the time book 2 comes out, the movie finally comes out, and they come out at the same time, and that would be a good thing. So fingers crossed. We'll see.
Are you listening, universe? Mira needs this. Let's make this happen.
I need this now. I know.
Does that, having illustrated these characters, having lived with them, having created their voices in your head, you're acting out the roles. I mean, you've lived in this world, and it shows. Your world building is amazing. Does that fill you with any kind of anxiety that eventually there will be a film version, and somebody, hopefully your team, but somebody is going to have some kind of input? Because even if they listen to, they did a Harry Potter, which I think the later Harry Potters are about as close to faithful as you can get to a book. Mostly because I suppose Warner Brothers was in a corner and could not do it that way. The fans would have been outraged. Even if they do that, it's still not going to be the thing you personally made. Is there any anxiety about that?
I remember my very first conversation with the head of Fox, all of Fox Studios, and I told her that I actually came out of film, because when I was in art school, I mostly did experimental film and multimedia. And I said, I have absolutely no problem somebody doing an interpretation, creative interpretation of my book. I don't care whether it's an adaptation or not, because I see a movie's not a book. You're condensing. You're taking the essence of something, you're designing time in a totally different way. That said, it's really important that you get the heart of the story. And when I read the script, the first draft of the script by the screenwriter who they hired, and he's a really great guy, and he's I really like him. I've met him a couple times, and I think he's a really, really fine writer. I was about 60% there. My main problem with it was that it didn't feel like it was in. It was more of the setting and the feel of it. It did not feel like a kind of steampunky sort of England. It felt really American. It felt more Disney, actually. And and there were a couple things that I had, like 60% I loved, 40% no. I felt like and he changed some things for the better, I think, or that would work in an amazing way for the film. Like there's a character in the book, Belisha, who is a giant crow. She's the guardian of the night crows. And he does something, my character doesn't meet her till much later in the book. He does this brilliant thing where he brings her, like she's sort of was there at his birth, and you sort of see her throughout the book and then really get to know her. But she's much more important sort of in the background, and he does it in such a beautiful way. I can't describe it. So things like that, I love when that happens in a movie. I don't care. It wasn't like that in the book. It's a film. But one important thing for me is that my character does go on this kind of, this quest on his own. He's alone for part of the, and in the script, he's always with his friends. And I think to me that's something that bothered me. Like I feel like he really should spend some time, and I don't know. I mean, it's just, there's so many drafts, and sometimes with screenplays you've got like 5 different screenwriters. They just, or the screenwriter goes through a million drafts. So I don't know how this version will end up. But the cool thing was, because of my involvement, I was able to give really, really detailed notes. So that's a long roundabout way of saying I don't care if it's an adaptation. I really don't care. People remember the book. Remember the book. I know people get when people say it wasn't at all like the book, and I always say because it's a movie. So, but if it if they turn to a beach movie or something, yeah, they could I love zombies. Throw a zombie in there. That would be cool. Take one of your zombies and put it in my world, and that would be awesome. But I think it's important that they keep the heart of the story, and not sometimes that is so twisted when it comes on screen. It just becomes unrecognizable. So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
I don't have anxiety. Just tell people to read the book, right?
Pardon me?
If it was a bad movie, you just remind people that they can still
Right.
read the book.
Right. So I don't have anxiety about it. Although now I have a little anxiety just about what's going to happen to, like, have Arthur and Trinket been thrown under the bus by Hollywood, or are we just in a holding pattern? Or, somebody described the Amelia Granger, who's sort of a big cheese over at Working Title Films in the UK, described making a movie as building a city on sand, and that's so true because it's constantly shifting. Things are constantly shifting. So, yeah, it's weird. Yeah.
Going back just a little bit, because I'm going to stop asking you about your anxiety, I promise. But I do want to ask, when you've just got a quarter of the book done, plus I assume an outline and some kind of plan that gives the publisher an idea of where you're headed, more or less. And then that happens, you sell it for way more than you thought you were going to be able to. You've already got movie interest. When you come back to your desk, does that power you to write faster with great confidence that this is going to be amazing? Or does that fill you with terror that, oh my God, the expectations are so huge, I don't know how to finish this now?
That's a really good question. I think that happened more with the second book. The first one, I just really enjoyed writing it, and I had a really good sense of where it was going already. And there was one moment where I turned in, I think all the movie people and my agent and my editor read a not a finished draft, but a pretty developed full, finished manuscript, but it wasn't, it went through a couple more revisions after that. And I got notes back from the movie people with some suggestions, and I kind of went la 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 like actually they asked if they could give me some, because they already had a movie in mind, and in fact they kind of wanted to jump the gun and get the movie stuff going based on this small part of a book, and I put the kibosh on it because then the movie would accelerate faster than the book, and I knew that was not a good idea. So I really put blinders on. But I felt that pressure when I started the second book, and that's because I had read the script, and that just messed me up because the script, like I said, was I wasn't, there were some really cool things that I wish I had put in my book that were not in my book. And so those were in the back of my mind. And then there are the things that just didn't work for me in the script. And also there are things in the script that and I, of course it's not a final script, but when I gave my notes, I was like, hey, these things need to be kind of go this way because book 2, this is going to happen. So if you do this in the script, that really that's going to be like, you're not going to be able to fix that if you do a sequel. It's hard to explain, but there are certain things that happen and certain characters that do certain things that are really pivotal. I really set things up. So it was more that kind of thing. But yeah, I suppose I had also insane time constraint because we were just rushing and rushing and rushing and rushing to try to get this done. Partially because it could have fit into the director's schedule, and then he ended up signing on to do The Crown on Netflix, which became this monolithic series.